How did I do? Did you understand what I had to say?
Almost all.
Almost all. Is the issue the English or the math?
uh, English. Some
English. Yes.
some problems, some difficulties maybe
Yes.
with understanding some words.
Eventually I'll give you I haven't filtered it down yet, but eventually I'll give you a vocabulary list of words that are most commonly used here that um, I may use that you may not understand. And I can't, as it is right now, I don't know exactly which ones you understand, which ones you don't understand, whether I talk too fast at times because it's so natural. But eventually I'll give you a list just to give you an idea as to what words virtually everybody knows here and uses often enough. Okay. So those of you that are back online, I, let's see, I see 9 out of 10 so far. There's a number of you that are online that I don't have not talked to directly because I don't see you visually, but I'm going to try and go to those people and at least see if verbally, if audio, it works for each of us. All right. So just be prepared for me to ask questions beyond the 4 or 5 that I see visually, because we've got a total of 9 right now and originally 10 people involved in this. So let's go here. Oh, English, the alphabet is broken up into 2 categories, what are called consonants, which I list for you on the first line, and what are called vowels. A, E, I, O, U are the vowels, and sometimes Y is considered a vowel. Those vowels may take on a long sound, which I just used, an A, an E, an I, an O, a U. Those are long sounds, but they may also take on a short sound, which happens more often. Ah, I, I, U, U. Much shorter, blending in with the word that they're used with. I would like someone, if you can, and let's just pick on, let's see if I can see my other names. Sophia, can you hear me?
Which one?
Oh,
It's two
which
of
one?
us.
Oh, yes, we've got 2. All right, let's go with Hertova, Sophia.
Гуртова.
Okay, can you read that sentence for me down here?
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs.
Okay. That sentence contains every letter of our alphabet. It contains all 26 letters. All right. That sentence, does it have any long the? So the E is long. The quick brown fox jumped over. The O for over is long. The E again, lazy. The A is long. All right. Dogs. So there are a few long vowels in there, but most of them are short vowels. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. Again, that's just one of the first and lower level aspects of our language that you have to get used to. When do I pronounce a long vowel? When do I pronounce a short vowel? Most of the time, they are short. By the way, I've written when it comes to the long sound, I've shown you both an uppercase and a lowercase letter. This is the quick-bound fox in lowercase, with the first letter always being capital or uppercase. So just some of the common expectations that are built into the English language. All right. Um, when it comes to working online, which most of you do, you have different fonts that you can use, different shapes for them. Helvetica is a font that is called sans serif. It doesn't have any little slashes on the top bottom. It doesn't have what are called serifs. All right. Times Roman is a common font that's used that is a serif font. It has those little extra embellishments. All right. And then you've got something that might be closer to, um, again, just kind of a dressed up font, cursive writing, something like that. So all of those are aspects of certainly our language here that you have to be able to deal with. I had somebody read the alphabet to me the other day. Now what I want is somebody, Maria, can you hear me? No, Maria? Let's go with the other Sophia. Daniko? Yanko? There she
Yeah.
is. Hi, how you doing? Can you
Yeah.
identify each of these objects for me?
Apple, bee, cat, dog, elephant, frog, girl, horse. Uh, what is it?
Igloo,
Igloo. Okay. Juice, a kangaroo, lion, monkey. Mm, I don't know what is it.
nest.
Nest. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Um, an O,
Octopus.
Octopus.
octopus. Okay. Pig, queen, rabbit, sun, uh, turtle. Am I right?
Turtle.
Turtle. Okay. Umbrella, and I don't see what is
Somebody help her.
Volcano.
Volcano.
volcano. Um, I don't see
Whale.
this.
Whale.
Whale.
Mm-hmm.
Whale. Can you say it, Sophia?
Whale.
Whale. Somebody help her out here.
It's like X-ray.
X-ray. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
X-ray.
Next, I know.
Somebody? That's,
Yield.
say it again.
Yield or not?
Not sure.
No, it's not yield.
Has to be the letter Y. That's a ball of yarn for sewing, right? All wrapped up. Yarn.
Yarn. Okay.
Yeah. It's like a
And last one is zebra.
and zebra.
Zebra. Yeah.
All right. There are very few long vowels in there. Most of them are short. Um, I'm trying to go through. Is there one? Lie. Lion. All right. You've got a long vowel there, the I. All right. Um, but most of them are very short vowels. All right. Okay. Good enough. Oh, B. You've got two E's. B-E-E. All right. Those are long vowels, but most of them are short. Is it Rima or Rima? Can you hear me?
I'm here. Yes, I hear you.
Okay, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to identify each of these objects for me. Can you please?
Identify what? Because I was late here. I were late and only now.
You can see my screen. Do you know what this is?
Apple. Yes.
Great.
And
Apple. What next?
ball,
Ball. What next?
cat,
Next.
dog,
Mm-hmm.
elephant,
Mm-hmm.
fish,
Fish.
fish, goat,
Goat.
hat,
Hat.
igloo.
Okay, it's e-glow. Don't ask me why it's pronounced like an E, all right? I'm not sure why, but it's e-glow.
Igloo. Juice,
Mm-hmm.
kite,
Mm-hmm.
leaf,
Mm-hmm.
monkey, nose, octopus,
Mm-hmm.
pig, queen, rabbit, sun, turtle, umbrella,
Mm-hmm.
volcano, watermelon, box, yo-yo,
Yo-yo.
yo-yo, zebra,
Zebra. All right,
zebra,
zebra.
zebra.
Again, the E there is long. Let's go back to octopus. Oc, kind of a short O. Toe, an O, long O. Often, when you have one vowel followed by a consonant, followed by a second vowel, that makes this first vowel long most of the time or much of the time. Just like in kite, K-I-T-E, vowel, consonant, vowel. The I is long, kite, all right, a long I. Most of the time, you've got other things, by the way, like here's two vowels in a row, E-A, leaf. It sounds like a long E, but it's actually the combination of the E and the A. I forget what they call that, but the vowels, when they're two side by side, create a combined sound. All right. Goat is another example. An O for a vowel, an A for a vowel. It's kind of a combined sound, makes the O sound long, goat. But there is a sound of A in there as well. So yeah, it's not easy again in any language, I think, to pronounce things correctly, as you can tell when I try and pronounce your names. But there are some rules to it. And as long as you understand the concept of long versus short vowels, it helps identify just what these are worth, okay? What they mean. You guys back. All right. Look, what we've done mathematically here, what we've done with both the alphabet here, a little bit of English, and again, hopefully my speech uh, fits what you're hearing or you understand what I say. All this doesn't matter a whole lot unless it impacts your life in some way. Has something to do with you. So here's some numbers that should impact you or impact you perhaps in the past. I didn't attempt to update my numbers per se, so I'll refer back to the year 2022, which is almost going on 3 years now, maybe the year 2021 and some of the statistics, but I'm going to throw some statistics at you, all right? In your life, according to the World Bank report, the poverty rate in Ukraine increased from 5.5% to 24.2% in 2022. First of all, let's just make it simple. What is 5% as a fraction?
It's like
It's
500s.
Dora, tell me, what is it?
It's 5 division of 100.
5 over 100 is a fraction. Can someone simplify that fraction for me?
500s.
It's 5 hundredths. I like that. Can you reduce that fraction? Here's a little
1
English.
and 20.
1 over 20, right? Okay. So yeah, that just tells me you understand what a percent is. And again, that's just basic arithmetic. So fine, your poverty rate. Now, poverty rate. What does that mean? What determines what's poverty? Maria, are you with us? Don't hear from her. All right. Let's go to Oleksandr. Am I correct? Oleksandr? Is that correct, Vladimir?
Alexander, it's for me or for
Alexander. See, there we go. Alexander. Okay. Alexander. Thank you very much. All right. What's it mean to be in poverty?
it's why I just first of all hear this word once in my life from you. So it's like trying to Google it right now, so I don't really know.
Just can someone else tell me what it means to be in poverty?
In poverty, like being poor.
Being poor, okay? Yeah, I suppose that's good enough. Point is, you can't meet all your needs. Maybe you don't have enough money for food, maybe not enough money for shelter, that sort of thing. All right. Your poverty rate jumps significantly according to the World Health Organization. Why?
It's much depends on the political situation and economic situation. Even in 2019, there was a big drop in our economic systems. I don't remember which graph, what graph tells me, but it was huge drop even before the war started and so on.
Even before the war started.
It was about our economy type because we are open small economy. We how it's like we need those import
Tell me,
things.
keep talking. Tell me about your economy drop in 2019.
It was like not as huge as you might think, but this was like more than 4% in how it called. Can someone help me to translate ВВП? It's like year income of the country. How much the money they produce in a year.
Anybody else
GDP,
chime
gross
in?
domestic product. He's talking about GDP, gross domestic product. He's talking about
Thanks.
this.
Vladimir, why was there such a drop in 2019? Because I didn't know anything about that.
Because we elected our new president. That's
Oh
the key
yeah,
reason.
yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah, I remember.
Okay, so it was a political issue, became an economical issue, and then the
Yeah.
war just compounded the problem, right?
Yeah, investors didn't believe in our choice, and a lot of people started to immigrate Ukraine even then.
And
So
so there's the third issue, immigration. All right, you're starting to lose in population to produce that product. So let me give you a statistic about the United States. By comparison, the official poverty rate in 2022 for the United States was 11.5%, which is certainly less than your 24.2%. However, we're a much bigger country. That means there are 37.9, basically 38 million people in this country that live in poverty, meaning they just can't make enough money to have what we need. And we'll talk about needs down the road in a few minutes. But you can see that's the population, more than the population today of your country. And so it's a big issue here, and an issue that recent politics is only going to exacerbate, meaning only going to make it worse. Okay. And you can see that that's an issue here that we are very, at least many of us, are very sensitive to, that something needs to be done correctly that way. The top 1% of earners in this country, the people that have the most money combined, that top 1% have more money than 80% of us in this country. If that 1% would contribute in a way that was more equitable, we could solve a lot of that poverty issue. But instead of that 1% becoming more equitable, they have become less equitable. There's some politics that took place back in the beginning of this century, around 2003, 2004, that ultimately led to where we are here today. So you can see that we've got equally a problem, and in terms of actual numbers, a much bigger problem than what you experienced there. And somehow we all have to deal with that because it doesn't just impact those that are in poverty, it impacts you and me as well. Numbers, percentages.
Mr. Bogle,
Yes,
just
sir.
for your like record or whatever consideration, poverty in Ukraine, it's and poverty in United States, there is a huge difference.
Tell me.
When we talk about poverty in Ukraine, we're talking about actual survival line. So people don't have enough food, and it's very hard to die in US without getting any kind of food or shelter or anything like this. It's you should really try to die, something like this. In Ukraine, it's quite easy. So that's the difference. It's poverty. It's like relative poverty. In US, we're talking about relative poverty, and in Ukraine, we're talking about physical poverty. In actual, I mean, the basic meaning of poverty. Just, I
Yeah,
mean,
you're right. In US, there is a money standard that says if you're below that value, and I don't know exactly what that value is off the top of my head, but if you're below that value, you're identified as someone that's in poverty. So yes, there is a standard to it. But there is death involved too. And again, I'll take that a little bit further. According to recent reports, there are 500,000 homeless people in the United States. All right? That they have to live in the streets, in the woods, whatever, that they can't afford or come even close to affording a home. 70,000 of them are in the city of Los Angeles. Can you see this picture?
Yes.
This is how those people live. They're on the street, they're in tents. There's no water directly to them. They have to go find it. There's no bathrooms, there's no food. They have to somehow scrape for that sort of stuff. All right. We've got 70,000 in one city. Why Los Angeles? Because it's relatively warm there. We have many others, however, up to 500,000 and more throughout our cities. So my point is, we've got the same sort of issues here. This, in many respects, was a great country, but in many respects, it was also a very unfair country. There is no reason why this has to exist, right? Except for politics. All right. So yeah, there are some people that don't know how to take care of themselves, but we should know how to help them out in that regard. And most of them are people that do care, that do deserve help.
May
So
I ask you a question about your homeless people? Because I heard sometime that someone says the homeless people they chosen to be homeless. He told about they get paid, so it's like
you
some
tell me,
of
would you choose to be homeless?
personally not, but I wanna ask you if there is some payment to homeless people, like monthly.
There Is there some payment to
Yeah, I
homeless?
want to know is was
In
some sort
terms,
of a propaganda
in
or
terms of money, no, there is not payment to homeless people. There are food stamps that they may get if they can prove that they are eligible for them so that they can actually buy some food. But that doesn't go a very long way. All right. There are people that are homeless because a number of years back we decided that we were going to empty out our mental institutions because there are mentally ill people. All right. They just haven't got the brain to function properly. And we decided, well, we can put them out on the streets that we think they can get along. And so there are mentally ill people out there that should get help, but don't know how to deal with life in general. All right. There are other people there that just either through the way in which they were raised or circumstances that hurt them, certainly physical damaged people that are homeless as well. Some people that just don't care, that don't want to take the effort to live in some other form and think that they can be comfortable this way. So, yes, there are all those issues, but primarily what we tend to underemphasize and overlook is that most of those people, the majority, the vast majority of those people, are homeless because they lost a job or they just couldn't make ends meet. And they were renting a home from someone that decided to raise the price to the point that they couldn't afford to be there. All right. There's this process called the gentrification of the city, where wealthier people come in and start to live in buildings that are being brand new that take over what are poorer buildings. And so the poorer people get pushed out. That happens frequently enough in our major cities. And as a consequence, they end up on the street. So there are a lot of reasons for why there are homeless people. Most of them, however, are there not because they want to be, not because they choose to be. All right. It's because they can't find a job or they got pushed out by people that are wealthier. And that is clearly an issue here. Anybody else have questions on homelessness here?
Yes, as for immigrants, say please.
Immigrants,
Immigrants, yes.
clearly an issue here. Why do you think immigration is such a big issue over the last 10, 15 years?
Again, politics.
Politics. Yeah. Okay. Countries where they're being mistreated, let's take Haiti. Are you guys aware of Haiti? Do you know where Haiti is? That country doesn't ring any bells for you? All right. Well, let me bring that up. Haiti is an island, part of an island. The Dominican Republic is half the island. Haiti is the other half of the island. Haiti, for the longest time, has been run politically by corrupt, incredibly corrupt um, politicians. And those politicians, the people of Haiti, have risen up and eliminated those politicians from time to time. Today, Haiti really doesn't have any stable government whatsoever. It has gangs that roam the streets and take what they think they can get. And as a consequence, there's a great deal of poverty and a great deal of immigration that takes place from Haiti. I just yesterday, was it yesterday? No, I just on Thursday was speaking to one of those gentlemen who is here to try and learn English. All right. They escape Haiti because they just have no place else to go. And they come here and they take very menial jobs, all right, so that they can make a living as well. So clearly, immigration, not just in Europe, but also particularly here, is made out to be a big cause of our homelessness, a big cause of why people are in poverty. The immigrants are coming here to take our jobs. Well, no, for the longest time, we have hired immigrants to do the jobs that we as Americans don't want to do. All right? Harvesting crops out in the sun, out in the heat. That's a difficult job. And so we have relied on immigrants to do some of those jobs, and we give them legal access to do that. But there's a lot more immigrants that have come to this country illegally through the Mexican border. And why? Because there are South American countries like Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador and others that, again, it's not just government, it's gangs that are forcing people out of those countries. Those people from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, those people walk thousands of miles, have to deal with smugglers that take their money to help get them across the border. And then when they get across the border here, they hope that they don't get caught and that they can find such a job. So clearly immigration is a problem in this country, but it needs to be treated humanely because those people didn't walk thousands of miles through mountains, crossed rivers, through swamps to get here because they felt like it. They walked those thousands of miles because whatever they met here in the United States would be better than what they met back home. We've now taken a stance on immigration that really is unjustifiable. All right. Yes, we have an immigration problem. We've had an immigration problem for 50 years because of what takes place mostly in South America, Haiti, and some other locations like Cuba. All right. Where people are mistreated politically. So we've had that problem for a long time. There are times when we've treated it humanely. There are times when we go really overboard where we are now. Do we build a fence? Maybe in some cases it makes sense, but in general, no, they're useless. You can tunnel under a fence. You can cut a fence. You can break it down. All right. Yes, we have an immigration problem, but our solution to that problem should be go to those countries and try and help out if their government allows, which they do, to try. And again, we're a rich country. Use our money to try and make life for people in those countries a little bit better. That's our job. And yet we don't want to do that job, at least presently, in the government that we have. All right. We have done it before under the Obama administration. Immigration actually changed direction, that the immigrants were going back home because we were providing help back home. All right. Yes, there are still illegal immigrants that are criminals. There's a certain number of those, but they're few and far between. And yes, anytime a criminal creates a crime, like there was one in Atlanta, where a girl was killed, a college girl, all right, very famous here, but we tend to focus on that. And that's just one of a million different immigrants. So let's stop picking on immigrants as people that are bad. Most of them are not. And yes, it is a problem, but there are solutions to that problem that may not be politically convenient, but that we actually have to do if we want to solve the problem. So yes, immigration is part of what creates some of our poverty here, what creates some of our homelessness here. We could solve it, but it takes politics and courage to solve it, political courage. And right now, we haven't got it. All right, we've gone the wrong direction. So back to some statistics. Again, cultural issues here. All right. Any other questions, by the way, about immigration? We all good for now? Tell me, do you have are the people that you have people that emigrate. Are there any people that immigrate to Ukraine?
Before, as far as I know, there was like Indian medical students. Most of all of them go to the universities, so to get an education. And some, mostly rare case, and as far as I know, maybe someone will correct me. It's there is some country that go to us. It's like when Ukrainian people go to Poland. Some of I don't remember which country, probably Moldova. They go to Ukraine, maybe, but I'm not sure about this. But
Do you
not.
get do you get immigrants from Africa?
Uh, I can tell if they're African, but I saw some. Like I know there was cases they go to the medical universities or something else.
In my university, first university where I get a bachelor's degree, was there were a lot of students from Africa.
Okay. So they come there for an education because they believe they can get a better education there, right? What
Honestly,
about
Or maybe
maybe the cheapest education in Europe. Maybe someone know better, but like that's significantly cheaper than like Germany or Great Britain. It's cheaper here, and you
yeah,
can just go and like protect your degree, and then you will get some certificate or agreement that you can make surgery in Europe, like to make it Europe standard.
yes. All right. What about immigrants from Syria when the war started there? Yes,
I
no?
know a few people who immigrate from Syria, and mostly this young people.
Because they could
Yes.
manage. Okay. All right.
Ukraine is like bordering country with the European Union, so a lot of them, I know students from Nigeria, Kenya. I was teaching them, and they told me a lot of stories when they were marrying, even having wives back there in Nigeria. They were marrying Ukrainians just to get Ukrainian passport because and then get the citizenship because of a free visa regime. We don't need visas to go to the European Union. So they tried. So they viewed Ukraine only as the first step in their immigration to Europe because Europe provides benefits. Ukraine doesn't provide benefits. We are
Mhm.
poor country, so that's why they can get nothing here. But I knew a lot of also students that said that Ukrainian legislature is not favorable towards students. They wanted to work legally. They actually wanted the same rights as foreign students have in Germany, for example. They have certain hours to work officially, and they asked, "No, I work illegally. I receive cash. I wish I could pay taxes in Ukraine. I wish I could this opportunity to stay here." But that's why they have this fraud marriages and everything like this. They also wanted to bring something into the country. So it was a huge problem. And actually, we will need such people because of the war casualties, and people don't want to to have children anymore because of afraid of the future. So probably that we will do something like this because this is our the only choice to survive somehow. So also a lot of students, and I also know people who were criminals. Also, they like prostitutes, then drug dealers, also, but only a few of them. A
Thank you.
slight percentage, one maybe percent, even less. But because of them, everyone think if it's like a black student, he is probably drug dealer in Ukraine.
Yeah,
So something like that. Yeah,
yes.
like that.
Very,
Also stereotypes.
yeah, very specific bias that way. Okay. Um, hmm, let me see what else I had in mind for you because I do have something else here. Ah, all right. Tell me, we talked about poverty. Tell me, what is it that we, as an individual, you, me, individually, what do we, you, what do we need? What do we actually need in order to survive? Can someone just pick one thing?
Oxygen.
We need clean air. That's right, absolutely critical. What else do we need?
Safe place like house.
Shelter, but that's not the first thing that I would come. But yes, shelter's another thing. We'll go with
Food and
that.
water.
Food.
Water. Okay. All right. You could only go as many as 4 days, at least statistically, talking math. You could only go as much as 4 days without water. After that, you're bound to die. All right. So, yes, we need clean air. We need water. What else do we need? We
Eat
talked about shelter,
food.
food. You could go as much as 2 weeks without food as long as you have water. All right. What else do we need?
Dress. Clothes.
Clothes. All right. Okay. Maybe if we were living along the equator, we wouldn't need clothes, but most of us need clothes. So food, clothing, shelter are often the first things we think about. But prior to even that, clean air, clean water are two things that are absolutely essential to us survival. What else do you need? Not what you want, but what you need.
Medical aid, medication.
Air, medication, medical aid of some sort. Things are complicated enough, and it is more of a global environment in which we live these days that um, if we don't have the proper medication, we're in trouble. What else do we need? I'm going to call these the TION in English. These words all end in TION. All right. Medication. The TION is almost sounds like an SH. Medication. What other TION words do we need?
Yeah, we need to socialize, like
We
society to
need
socialization,
yes, exactly.
human
We do need
interaction.
human interaction. That is critical, but there are people that believe they can get along without it. And yes, maybe there are some. All right. Those that tend to go off into the wilds of Alaska, I'll say, or Siberia, and make their way while they're there, survive. 99.9% of us couldn't do that. We couldn't do without that association. All right. We need somebody else to communicate with. What are those TION words? What other things do we need? Most of you work in an industry that provides us with what we need. What's that other TION word?
Education?
Education. That's one. There's another. I think Alexandra Kukla, what do you do for a living?
I'm working.
You work doing what?
I create programs.
Great. What are those programs good for? What can you give me a TION word that identifies what those programs are about?
It's programs provide ability to communicate and
Communicate. Right there.
yeah.
That's the word I'm trying to pick on. Communication. In today's world, we wouldn't survive very long without that sort of communication. We would get lost in this process of trying to make a living. All right. We are very, very dependent on it today, much more so than in the past. All right. I'm going to share a screen with you again. Give me a second. Clean air, clean water. We need sleep, by the way. Without those three things, we'd be in trouble. All right. You can forget all the rest. If you don't have clean air, clean water, and sleep, then you're not going to survive any length of time. All right. Let's talk about the clean air thing for a minute. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to pick on a timer. I'm going to pick on my phone. And I'm going to come up with a watch. I think I've got that management. Here we go. Clock. And I'm going to do a stopwatch. And what I want you all to do right now, I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to try and hold your breath for as long as you can. Okay? So take a couple deep breaths. Okay? And now hold your breath. Okay, breathe. That's 1 minute. All right? Without clean air. Without air, period. Okay? You don't go very long without air. That's just how critical it is. You can forget everything else, but you've got to have that air. All right? Air, water, sleep. If you've got them, then we can talk about food, clothing, shelter. If you've got them, we can talk about education, sanitation, medication, communication, transportation. All right? Um, is there anybody in this group, you know, anybody in this group own a car? Speak up if you do. Anybody? Vladimir, you don't own a car either, right?
I don't need one
Yeah, well, great. So why don't you need one?
because everything at proximity
Yes,
doesn't take,
thank you.
and public transportation is
You have-
wonderful. Not like in your place, it's like Bears Corner, whatever it is.
Well, the point is, you've got public transportation that handles your needs. All right.
Yeah.
So here, I can't survive without a car. We're spread out more. Unless I choose to live in a city where there's good public transportation, like New York City, for example, I can't do without a car. I can't walk far enough, fast enough to get to my food, to get to whatever I need. So that's a need, at least significantly. Well, it's a need for you too. All right. But not in the same sense that it is here. You have a much better public transportation system there than we do here in general. All right. Human interaction, we talked about. All of those things are dependent on having electricity to provide those things. All of those things are dependent on having money to provide those things. And that's where this issue of potential poverty comes into play. All right. Those are your needs. the people in this country, those that aren't in poverty, can meet those needs. But unfortunately, obviously, something just over 50% of the people in this country that can afford them feel that they're entitled to more than those needs. And that, and again, is a problem here. It's what leads to the state that we're in right now. All right. Thinking, I want more, I want more, I want more. All right. Here's what those other people want. Certainly, we want freedom, control over our own lives, which I think everybody deserves. All right. We want physical activity. We like sports here. We think we're entitled to those sports. Certainly, we want friends. Everybody wants friends. All right. Romance, family, comfort food, entertainment, travel, peace of mind. All right. Those are all things that we want that we may get along without. But all those things do play a role in our lives. And sometimes those wants exceed what we really deserve in this country. And there's just some statistics, a little pie chart that tells you where our money goes. You see that little chunk down there that says taxes? That's actually far worse than that. All right. I don't know what taxes are in your country, but here, well, it's not as bad. I know that in some countries it's far worse than here, but it takes away, you have to account for that when it comes to try and pay for these other things. Right. Human needs, human wants are two different issues. And confusing those issues is what's led to some of what takes place here in the United States. Those homeless people. In the United States, the minimum wage is $7.25. Those people couldn't get possibly along, doing a job with less than $15 an hour. That's $7.25 an hour, by the way. Those people couldn't possibly get along with less than $15 an hour in this country and still meet these needs. I know that's a different scale than what you're used to there, but at the very least, it takes a single person $15 an hour if they're going to take a job and have that job support their needs. And in general, it gets to be a little more than that year to year to year. Let's see, here we operate in dollars. Your currency, what is your currency? Rima, can you tell me what the currency is in Ukraine?
I don't know.
Say it again.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Mhm.
What do you call the currency? We haven't been able to get to Maria. Max, what's the currency? What's the money that you use in Ukraine?
In Ukraine, we use hryvnia.
Hryvnia, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But for big deal, we use dollar or euros.
Oh, so you do use euros, huh?
Yes, yes. This for big deal like buying house or car, we use dollars or
Okay.
euros.
Why is that?
Because this currency is more stable than hryvnia.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So sure, different currencies have to, kind of, um, in fact, you got to know what the exchange rate is to know what value they actually have. That's part of something that actually keeps my youngest son very busy because being able to operate in the right currency at the right time earns you money. So, yeah, a living wage here sounds completely different than what a living wage is there, um, but it's still what you call a living wage. Can I get by with that money and still meet these needs. That's what the living wage is all about. All right. Culture. Population in Ukraine. Do you know what it is, other than Vladimir? Do any of you know what the population of Ukraine is these days?
Like 25 million, maybe.
Okay. I've heard
Maybe
numbers.
less.
Yeah, I've heard numbers between 25 million and 28 million. Okay. As recently as 2023, the population was 36 million, at least according to the statistics that I have in front of me. All right. Roughly speaking, where did everybody go?
Honestly, this statistic I know in the start of like 2014, maybe Vladimir can change this. So it's like was 48 million, but the rate of people living in Ukraine that take part in this statistic is slowly decrease. It was like 42, third, like 39, and it goes slowly, but it's like, and
Why?
now it's 28.
Why?
Probably that's because uh, low payment. It's not enough money for an hour of work. Some of people go to the Poland, Europe, Germany, Great Britain, Czech Republic.
Why else? What's the obvious reason people emigrate from Ukraine?
Honestly, it's danger for now, and the second reason is a low payment. It's like the you can get more money for the same amount of work. So
Yes. Nobody wants to live in a war zone. Okay?
even before that, they slowly go
Yes.
there because
Yeah, but yeah, I understand that before that part. Yes, that is true. All right. Um, yeah, money, being able to afford that. That's why people tend to immigrate here because yes, it's a relatively rich country and you can earn a living here better than you can in many of the South American countries. But the other issue is you're at war, not through any fault of your own, all right, through the fault of the Russian government, through particularly the fault of Putin, all right. Um, and as a consequence, you've lost a lot of your population, which makes it very hard for you to keep up the fight against Russia. Russia has something in the neighborhood of 143 million people. That's four times your size or four times what your size was a couple years ago. Um, so why is Russia having such a problem taking over Ukraine?
Uh, I would like to add about the reasons of population declining. It's just aging population. Simply, people die because we have a lot of people over 60, and the life expectancy is very low. If we talk about males, the life expectancy at birth is below 60 now. It's like 58. So it doesn't mean that everyone in 57 will die at 58, but you understand what does it mean at
I
birth,
I
expectancy at
hope
birth.
not.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But you understand what it. And we have very low fertility rates. For example, to keep the population stable without a war, without everything else, you should have at least 2.15 or 2.2 births per woman, and now we have zero point 0.6. So basically, the next generation will be one what? It will be one fourth of what we have right now. So the next generation will be one fourth of what we have. So
That's
it's
that's
like that.
that's something of a worldwide phenomena, by the way. All right. The fertility rate, that's an issue with China particularly, with Japan particularly, and something of an issue here as well. But that also is depend. And again, there are those other reasons why your population diminishes. But in your case, a primary reason is the war, is it not? Yeah, I would think so. All right. And And the fact that it's uncomfortable to live there when you don't have enough electricity, when you don't have water, when you don't have power, when you have to live without those things for a period of time, which is why Russia is targeting your electrical, grid. Um, so yeah, that's the change. And the reason you survive, I think, is because you're proud of who you are. And it's hard for you to do, and I hope that we continue to support you that way. Who knows what happens, but it's critical that we support you that way.
Black humor. Another reason we survived because we had a warm winter this year. So
Did you have a warm winter?
yeah, otherwise I think Russians would succeed in destroying our energy, shut down. They will definitely black out us. So simply we were lucky to two
Yeah.
years in a row. That's all. It's just about luck. But next year the luck will be over. So we need to think something else. So
Well,
luck cannot last forever. So.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you were
Global
lucky.
warming is on our side, as I say, yeah.
Say it again.
Global warming is on our side
On
for
your
now,
side.
but not for
Yay.
long. No, it's not yet. It's more like chaotic change. And you were asking about why they're so slow in the progression as what they expected. I can remember as a Finland, when it was a Soviet Union, they also was a crushing defeat. They got some territory, but it's not as much. So Finland now has one of the greatest armies in Europe, probably. But for me, as what I know and what I saw, it was like broken expect. They thought they will be easy. They will be like uh,
Yeah. They
they
thought it
like
would be.
savers. They know like where they're savers. They will save us from a corrupt government and so on, so on. But people wasn't so sure about this. So it's like, but they got very big success in Kiev when they attacked Kiev from the three sides. So they know, but great thing for our various they protected. So, but it's as much more corrupted government. So there's like wasn't mobilized enough soldiers, and they wasn't so experienced. So, but for now they're gaining experience. They are greatly communicating. So it's like better. But they used at the first days. It's like old known Soviet Union push. It's like go in a total, like in a total. But now they're using small groups. So as far as I know.
Mhm. Um, my understanding from what little I have in terms of feedback from Russia is that not that entire population supports. They don't support what's going on here. And that Putin doesn't necessarily have control over that entire population. And so I'm just hoping that Russia, the Russian people, wake up to that fact as a whole, and that ultimately we come to some resolution that takes Ukraine back to the country that it was as a whole, and that Russia becomes a less aggressive nation. Don't know that that'll happen. Historically, they have been aggressive, um, but it's a hope anyway. We'll see whether or not that occurs. All right. I'm going to do just a couple more things here. Once we go beyond just the arithmetic of things, we get into measurement. And of course, that creates another issue, as we mentioned yesterday, in that you have one unit of measure, the international system of measurement. We have another system of measurement, all right, which isn't nearly as logical as yours, but it's still something that we actually tried to get rid of in the 1970s and ultimately failed to do so because we were so ingrained in how we measure things that people just weren't willing to adapt. And so we gave up on trying to change. And so that leads to some arithmetic in terms of trying to convert. In fact, um, in fact, trying to convert, no, I won't diverge. You have a certain number of fundamental units: mass, length, time, temperature, electrical currency, luminosity. Those are basic units of things that you measure in your system of measurement. Anything else, you are combinations of those systems of units. All right. When it comes to measuring length, for example, you measure in meters or maybe in centimeters. You don't tend to use the other units like decimeters or hectometer or those. You tend to seem to favor meters and decimeters. Here, we favor the inch, the foot, the yard, which is comparable to your meter, and ultimately the mile. You do kilometers, we do miles. So trying to convert back and forth makes it more difficult for us to communicate on a cultural level. I'm going to highlight this one measure. Here's an equation. Right there, that equation that helps convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I told you yesterday, and see if you can do this without any sort of calculating device. I told you yesterday, in fact, actually, last night, we had a low of 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you use that equation to tell me exactly what that would be in your temperature range?
I think it's 4, 4 градус Цельсия. If we convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius, it's 4.444 Celsius.
I don't think so. If I was 14 degrees
Oh,
Fahrenheit,
14.
I think it's
Negative.
like negative, that negative, maybe like minus 10, minus 8.
well, which one? You can tell me exactly.
Negative 10.
Negative 10. This comes down to some arithmetic again, right? The first thing I need to do is subtract 14 minus 32. What's 14 minus 32?
Negative 16. No,
Negative
16,
what?
negative 18.
Negative 18, right? What's the second thing that I do?
Multiply by 5.
Thank you. The second thing I've got to do is actually multiplication by 5. Not this division, but this multiplication. Multiplication by 5/9. Again, it's somewhat inherent. There's a parentheses that's not here, but it's understood that this is multiplied by 5, divide by 9. Now I could divide first. What would negative 18 divided by 9 be?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. What's 5 times negative 2?
Negative 10.
Yes. So in this expression, there's some leeway as to what I do actually next. Do I divide next? Do I multiply next? I could do either one. All right. But you should come out with negative 10 as an answer. Okay. There's an equation for this stuff. There's algebra here, as opposed to just arithmetic. There is a way to do this with arithmetic too. There's also a way to pick up your phone and say, okay, convert for me. I know that. But sometimes that's not convenient. And that's not necessarily as quick as what you could do in your head. So yes, we've got this issue of not just, let me make this a little tinier. We've got this issue of not just measuring, but having to convert from one system to the other, all because it's our fault. All right. we're too set in our ways to go to a system that makes a whole lot more sense. All right. These are some of the conversion factors that we use in the process. A kilogram for you, 2.2 pounds here. All right. Length, 2.54 centimeters. That's exact, is 1 inch here. So when you talk to me about your height in centimeters, which you will do, right? You measure your height in centimeters, if I'm not mistaken. We measure our height in feet and inches, but usually it's the inches that matters. All right. You could convert. I would have to divide by 2.54 to find out just, let's see, centimeters to inch. Yeah. So if I had 90 centimeters for my height, I'd have to divide by 2.54 to figure out how many inches that is. Okay. Meter and a yard are almost the same, not quite. They're off by a few inches or more centimeters. All right. So listen, I used to be a track runner. We used to run in miles or run in yards. So we might have the 100-yard dash. That all ended in the 1970s. All tracks today are in meters. And so it's the 100-meter dash. That changes what some of the times are, obviously, because the 100-meter dash is about 10 more yards than the 100-yard dash. And so, yeah, we had to adjust in terms of what our recognized times were. I ran a mile, okay? I was a miler. You don't measure in miles anymore. That generally you'll run a 1,500-meter race, which is a good 100 meters less than a mile. And so you get different times and have to adjust to that. That was an adjustment that I had to make as a track person, as a runner, that what was necessary in the 60s and the 70s, mostly the 70s. All right. So yes, conversion, measurement. It just all adds to the arithmetic that we have to do just to do very basic mathematics. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop there today. I just get the sense, at least from my standpoint, that 3 hours of this is more than 3 hours in a classroom to me is fine. 3 hours on video starts to get a little bit strenuous. So I'm going to call it quits today and pick up with next Saturday and do a similar sort of thing. Do a minimum of 2 hours of work, and then depending on where it takes us, maybe a little bit more in terms of time. Are there any questions that I can answer relative to English, relative to culture, relative to mathematics before we go?
I wanted to ask, we have kilograms, so it's kg. Why pounds is lbs?
I don't know. That's a good question. Okay.
I'm really interested in this.
I'm not sure that I would have to look it up online. I don't know why it's LBS. LBS, pounds. That probably has something to do with the English, and you know that they're like off in another world anyway. So, I mean, we inherited this as an English system of measure, but I don't know. I've never looked that up. I've never figured out why it's LBS. LB. Yeah, I don't know. It's just always been accepted in my life as pounds, and everybody accepts it. Good question.
Okay, I will Google it.
It's
Please
from
do.
Latin. It's from Latin, librum.
It probably does have a Latin base to it. But again, I never looked it up. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I already did.
Did you?
Long time ago. A long time ago when I 30 years ago, I did 30 years ago. So
Well, so why don't you remember?
yeah, I remember.
What's the
So
La
librum.
what's the Latin word?
Librum, Librum.
Is
And
it
libras, Libra. Libra.
Librum, huh?
Uh-huh. and the plural it's Libra, Libra. It's a
Mhm.
measurement, Latin
Yeah,
one.
that's typical Latin, plural,
Yeah,
singular to plural.
it's more than 2,000 years for now. So you use it from Latin Empire. Can you imagine this? Roman Empire, sorry.
Yeah.
Roman Empire.
Well, that's what I told you. We're prone not to, we get stuck in the past and prone not to making changes. It'd be so much nicer if we just dropped the whole English unit of measures and stuck with the metric or international system. But we don't. We don't bother to do that. Okay. Any other questions that we can answer?
Yeah, and I have question. Do you use feet in real life? So you have inches, like 1 yard equal to 3 feet and equal to 36 inches. Do you use feet in real life or not?
Yes, yes. I am 6 feet tall. All right. So when someone talks to me about my height, I must always measure it in just straight feet. If I were not quite 6 feet tall, I might be 5 feet 10 inches, for example, or 5 feet 11 inches, for example. All right. So we'll use the combination of the two. It is rare that we measure strictly in inches unless it's something fairly short. Sitting over here, and let's go to sitting over here, I'm holding a ruler, okay? If we're only measuring something of this length, yes, I will measure it in inches or even fractions of an inch. On this ruler, you, however, will see inches and you'll also see centimeters, right? And so there are times when it's far more convenient to me to measure in centimeters. So we almost always have the double standard. But once you get beyond this ruler, maybe we'll go to 18 inches, but then we'll start talking in feet and inches. And once you go beyond 3 feet, then we'll start talking in terms of yards, perhaps. All right. It would not be unusual for me to talk about measuring some distance outside in feet if I went up to 100 feet. But when I measure my soccer fields, for example, because I'm involved in managing a set of soccer fields, no, I'll measure them in yards, and I'll make my soccer field 110 yards long by 75 yards wide. And so when do we make the transition from one unit of measure to another? There's some liberal standards, but no, I could measure my soccer fields in inches if I wanted to. It's just not convenient. All right. And I could measure it in feet if I wanted to, but it's just not convenient. It's more convenient to measure in yards because it's long enough. Any other questions?
So I have one question. It's about our weight system. We call gram, kilogram, and then it's going a ton, and then it's going to megaton, kiloton, and so beyond. Kiloton, megaton, so beyond. Is it bother you because we have this perfect metric system that's you pico, nano, kilo, and so on, but only for a kilo for weight we use ton.
Yes. Okay. You use ton, and that's what is called a metric ton, or at least in this country. We use ton, but our ton is 2,000 pounds. Your metric ton is 2,200 pounds if we're going to translate it. So when we go from here, that issue comes up. When we go from here to Canada, we have that issue. Anyone that drives a truck has to know the difference because they deal in tons of material. And they have to know based on their, what their weight is, either in metric tons or in tons, depending on which side of the border they're on between here and Canada. And if they're overweight, they get fined. They can lose thousands of dollars if they don't know the difference and if they're not careful. All right.
It was more question about why we shouldn't go with mega kilo because we go gram, kilogram, and then ton, and then kiloton. But we skip this part with the kilogram. We straight up go to the ton.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good
But
point.
it equals 1,000 of course.
You skip simply because it's convenient. All right. At some point in time, you have to decide, do I go from here to here or not? So you do a lot of skipping. When you go from centimeter to meter, you're skipping decimeter. Okay. Um, um, and you may go from millimeter to, well, it's not likely you go from millimeter to meter. I don't think you ever do that. But you do go from centimeter to meter. You skip decimeter, which is again part of the metric system. So things do get skipped. Here we go from pounds right to ton. We don't go to anything else in between. Okay. There's another difference, by the way, that I want to point out, and that is a gallon. A gallon here is 4 quarts. A gallon in Canada is 4 liters. And so when you're buying gas and you see that the price for gas in Canada is so much higher, it's because you're getting more. 4 liters is 4.25 quarts. So it's greater. And so as a consequence, actually might even be more than that. So the point is, there's the same word, gallon, being used when you're buying gas in Canada that's used in the United States, but it is a completely different measure. It's based on metrics. All right. I hope I answered your question as far as why we skip. I don't know why, except it seems to be convenient. There's a point at which it's just, let's jump over and skip some of these other things. Any other question? Whether it's culture, English, math. All right. I hope to see you all next week. Let's have another conversation. We'll get into, just to tease you a bit, we're going to get into politics more when we do that, and try and there's no way of explaining politics in this country, but at least discuss it and see what I can provide for you in terms of background. Okay? Thank you very much. You guys have a good day there. Your day's pretty much done. Mine's just starting, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See you.
Thank
Bye.
You have a
See
good